All right, it's John McIntyre here, the autoresponder guy from Drop Dead Copy. I am here with David Deutsch, a world-renowned direct response copywriter, marketing strategist, author, and copywriting coach. In addition to creating winning promotions from scratch, he also works with clients and writers behind the scenes to turn underperforming promotions into winners. Now, if you've been in the copywriting world for a while, you've probably heard about David Deutsch. He's been on the Drop Dead Copy podcast before a while ago now, but he's here to talk about his perspective on AI, and he's going to take a little bit of a different approach to some of the other people I've spoken to. So I'm pretty excited to get into it. But first, David, maybe the best place to start is there anything else you think people, should know about you? Any background, any social proof, any stories you want to share that might set the stage for what you're going to talk about today?
No, I think that the thing that I feel, especially with AI, kind of helps me is having been in this for so long and seen so many transitions, seeing the transition from, you know, practically from typewriters to, electric typewriters, from electric typewriters to typewriters with memories, from typewriters with memories to the internet, from the internet to AI, and all those things, and seeing how each thing changes what we do and yet doesn't change what we do, and how it's never as big a change. In some ways, it's a bigger change than you think, and in some ways, it's not so big a change. But I feel
Hmm.
like it's really kind of prepared me for having a perspective on this in terms
Hmm.
of, what stays the same, what's different, how to utilize it. Um, Because I think, especially with I think people, I don't know, they get off track a bit, I think, because it can actually create copy. And that kind of leads to a kind of, oh, this taking the copy and just kind of using it as it is, and not really realizing that the human element of it is so important and needs to be deliberately put in there.
Right. So you
That
were
was a bit
back.
of a
No, that's
that was a
good.
bit of a long-winded answer to your question, but
All good, man. When you got into copywriting, it was still typewriters?
no, it was a little bit beyond typewriters. It was
Okay.
electric typewriters. It's just starting to be typewriters with some memory, electric typewriters with
Mm.
some memory on a little card.
Right. That's an interesting, yeah. I mean, I've been around, the internet's sort of always been around for me. So the AI stuff is new, but I suppose it would be a whole different thing if I'd been 10, 20 years before that, before computers were even around properly. And that'd just give
Well,
a different, more long range perspective.
well, I think part of it too, that whole thing about handwriting copy, right? Like at each of those stages, people kind of got a little bit further away from this idea that, because copy is basically communicating, right? It's basically, hey, I have this thing I want to sell you. Look how great it is, right? Let me tell you about it. Let me tell you why it works. And we get farther and farther away from that. We get to, oh, writing down words on the page. And then we get to typing words on the page. And then we get to typing words on a computer that can kind of correct and do things. And then we get to, hey, AI, you do it for me. And I think we get further and further away from that basic human to human selling. And I think that was a danger when we stopped. Gary Halbert was always in favor of, no, you should handwrite your ads because
Hmm.
it's closer to that human to human experience.
Mm. Mm.
And
Interesting.
I think a lot of when I coach people in copy, the only thing I'm really doing is kind of pushing them back to that human experience. And like, no, you wouldn't talk to a person like that, right? You wouldn't like say that whole sentence. You wouldn't have a headline that says 15 things. You wouldn't say, oh, new killer opportunity will make your face fall off. Why do you say that? Why do you say that in copy? But
Hmm.
people get into a different mindset. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds like a good jumping off point. What do you have to share with us today? What's on your agenda?
okay, I have a presentation here that I will attempt to switch through to. Um, so I have to share the screen. Okay. So, aha.
Perfect. I can see it.
Recorded. Look at that. Um, Now, let me see if I can. Okay. That. Oh, come on. Get out of there. All right. I don't think I can. Oh, here we go. It just got out of the way. Uh, View. See, I'm a technology wizard. Uh, Where's presentation view? You can edit all this out, I hope, right? You
I
probably
can,
won't.
yeah.
Probably won't, but you
Probably
theoretically.
won't. It's easier to not. Theoretically, I could. I think you could just go to slideshow in that top menu bar, right?
Oh, here we go. Yes, slideshow. Play
Play
from
from
start.
start. There we go.
One time I clicked play from start and it actually started playing the thing because I had clicked some other
Uh,
play from start where it actually goes through it at its own
right.
pace. Okay.
Uh,
Okay. The AI trap, 10 big mistakes that could be making your copy worse instead of better.
uh, great.
Okay. Let me see if I can get that out of the way. Mistake number one, not understanding what AI actually is and isn't. I think that people have generally a very superficial understanding of what AI is and what it does. And I think even I have to keep reminding myself that it isn't sentient, it isn't intelligent, it doesn't really understand what I'm saying. The only thing it does is take what I'm saying and then use it to compute what the best next word is in its response. So it's
Hmm.
just constantly, it's just purely predictive, right? As Wolfson says, it's just trying to produce a reasonable continuation. Now, it's really good at producing a reasonable continuation, right? It's really quick at that, and it bases it on a lot of stuff that it's read. But still, all it's doing is it's just really, really good at predicting what the next word should be.
Hmm.
Um, so because it doesn't have an intelligence, because it doesn't really understand what it's been asked, or it doesn't really understand even what it's replying, it's almost like you have to pretend like you're talking to an alien, right? He studied Earthlings, he studied marketing, he studied copywriting, but he doesn't really understand, kind of like Spock, right? It's pure logic.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that really helps people to prompt it in a better way. Like, how, like if you
Hmm.
talk to an alien or if you talk to a child, you have to be really specific, right? You have to be
Hmm.
really overly clear about what you mean, or they're going to misinterpret it. Paris von Populus once likened it to an evil genie that will deliberately misinterpret what you say. And I think that's a great little frame for thinking about it too. Just pretend it's an evil genie that will deliberately misinterpret what you say if it's possible to do
Uh-huh.
it. So you have to be really
Uh-huh.
clear. It's this, not that, right? Make it
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
absolutely mistakable.
Uh-huh.
Um, and of course, study prompt engineering so you can learn to speak its language. Um, okay. Mistake number
Yeah.
two, letting AI do all the work and losing your edge. I think a lot of people kind of overly rely on AI. Certainly the worst sin is to just cut and paste what you get from AI, as we'll see. Um, but if you just, I've read about people and I've heard people where they're like, I used to be really good at thinking up things. But then now if I have to think something up, I just type into AI and it kind of thinks up some headlines or some things for me or analyzes something. And I find when I have to do that away from the computer, they say, it's slower for me to do it now. I'm losing my ability to do that. So I think that's a real danger, aside from the fact that putting your thinking and writing and ideas, combining that with AI is what really makes it good and really what gives you the edge.
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, and I think especially as more and more people use AI and it gets easier and easier to use, real skill and judgment is going to be the thing, is going to be the real competitive advantage,
Yeah.
right? Because everyone can generate 10 headlines. But how many people are there that can really recognize what are the two best headlines? How many people out there can really take those two headlines and tweak them so they sound more human and tweak them to make them even better? That's what's going to
Right.
make, certain copywriters stand out from others, is they can do that.
Yeah. This is something I've been explaining to people, like in some of the other sessions and even in my own thinking, where yeah, if everyone's got ChatGPT, it's not really an advantage. It's how you use it, which is the skill, the judgment, having like taste. Like it's almost like
Mm-hmm.
reading a lot, reading widely, studying things. So you have your like the filter that filters through all the, if you say, give me 100 headlines, most of them will be probably pretty average, but there'll be a couple that are like, oh my God, that was fantastic. Hey, tweak a little bit,
Yeah.
make it a little bit better. But it's that human, it's like you plus ChatGPT. It's not all ChatGPT or all AI. I think if it's
Mhm.
just AI, it doesn't usually do very well. It needs the human input.
Yes, the human input and the human judgment and discernment in terms of
Mm.
after it comes out. Um, mistake number three, not being as active as possible at all three steps, because there's basically three steps, right? There's the input stage. You've got to, the big mistake people make is they don't overshare with it. They tell it too little. You want to tell it who, what, when, where, how, why. What is it, what is the context of this? What is the role you want AI to play? Right? That's a big thing when you're working with AI is pretend you're a great copywriter, pretend you're Gary Halbert, or pretend you're a marketing genius, or pretend you're the most, creative person in the world. AI really likes to take on roles like that. And it gives it's a real shorthand way of telling it how you want it to interact with what you're giving it. Context, right? Um, Sometimes I'll get real human with context and I'll be like, hey, I really want to write something that's going to impress, this prospective client, or like I'll just give it like story. And I find it really responds to that. It really helps to guide it. Obviously, who it's for in terms of the audience, the tone of the writing that you want to get back, and also the type and form of the output. Those five things, if you just remember to put them into your input, you're going to be miles ahead of people. And then examples. AI loves examples. It learns from examples. This is an example of the kind of copy I want. This is an example of the kind of idea. They laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play, this is a great example of a story headline, right? Can you do one like this for me? Um, and then iteration, which is just, I think it's a step that a lot of people leave off, is just going back and forth with it, having a conversation with AI, right? Thinking of it as a thinking partner, as a brainstorming partner, not just I ask a question and it gets an answer and it gives an answer, but how do I then respond to that answer or to that copy, right? I say, okay, can you do this instead? What are some opposite ways of doing it? Be a devil's advocate. Why might this not work? Right? Just like I would if I was sitting down with an assistant that was writing copy for me and we went back and forth, asking it to change its assumptions, right? Well, what if they're not interested in money? Like, what are 10 headlines that would be if they weren't interested in money, they were more interested in status, right? Change its reasoning, try reasoning from this perspective or this way of thinking. Playing devil's advocate. And then on the output, like we were talking about, using your own judgment and skills to take it to the next level, not just copying and pasting what it does. I find AI, even if you just push it, even if you just say, is this the best you can do? Right? It'll respond with something like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, now that I read it, it's not very good. Let me try again. And then it'll give me something even better. Or I'll say, this is
Mm,
kind of boring, or this is kind of same sounding, or, did you read my instructions or what? And it'll kind of go, yeah, well, I might have skipped over some things. Um,
right.
Funny with AI, right? It's like you would think if you give it a prompt, it'll read it carefully and do everything in the prompt. But the truth is, it sometimes doesn't. It sometimes gets really focused in on one part of what you asked it to do and kind of
Mm,
forgets about, other things.
hmm hmm
So just thinking in terms of these three steps, right? You're always wondering, how can you make the output better? How input better? How can you make the iteration going back and forth better? How can you be better at taking the output and doing more with it?
hmm hmm Yeah.
And then mistake number four, not using AI systematically in every step of the copywriting process, right? The research part of it. Um, a lot of the copy that I critique and help people with, the biggest problem is not the copy itself, but it's that it's not based on a real understanding of the product and how the product is used and how the product works and what the science is behind the product, what the technology is, what the history is behind the product. Makes the copy so much richer and so much more compelling. And AI is pretty good at figuring that out. The market, what are the demographics, right? How old are they? How rich are they? How poor are they? And the psychographics, what do they believe? What do they fear? What are their desires? What keeps them up at night? What do they know? What does someone with arthritis know that people with arthritis don't know? That's a great thing to include in copy. And AI is really good at figuring out what that is. Um, Scraping social media posts, reviews in order to get people's deeper emotions, deeper feelings, how they talk about the copy. AI is really good at, just scraping a million social media posts or a million reviews and then condensing that into, okay, here's what the avatar looks like, or here's what this market looks like. And then once you've got that, you can always use that to put in anytime you do whatever, right? Every time you do an email, every time you do a sales page for that same client or for yourself, you've got that summary of having read thousands of social media posts and reviews or of having researched how the product works.
hmm
And then the competition. It's great at analyzing what the competition does, right? What is it? What are the strengths? What are that we can learn from? What are the weaknesses? Even just to be able to say, okay, well, this is the competition's ad, this is my ad. What is the competition doing that I'm not doing that I should be doing? Right? And what is the competition not doing that I could take advantage of? Or where are they weak? Like maybe they don't have a lot of proof. Okay, well, maybe I need to make sure I have a lot of proof in what I do. Maybe they don't talk about the what could happen if you don't use it, right? Maybe that's an opportunity to me to be sure to talk about it. Or maybe they do talk about it, but I don't. It's like, uh-oh, I better not leave that out anymore. So much to be learned from and such an easy way to find out things. That's research. And then ideation, right? Just getting it to come up with lots of ideas, but also giving it frameworks. Like I think sometimes the mistake people make is they just say, give me 10 ideas about a headline for this supplement or something. And that's fine. But then you can get even better ideas if you just give it like, what kind of ideas do you want? Well, give me some story ideas or give me some idea. I once told it, give me some ideas that I learned this from someone. I can't remember who it was. I wish I could credit them. But give me some ideas like based on Star Wars. And so it came up with all these great
hmm
things, like in a galaxy far away, there was a breakthrough of immense proportions, or this is light years ahead of everyone. This is like a rocket ship blasting off into space. I mean, I'm doing it not as well as AI did it. But you see what that does, right? It gives it a focus, gives it a
hmm
context. It generates new sorts of ideas. And then, of course, there's the copy generation itself, which is, I think, how a lot of people only use it, right? Give me 10 emails or write me a sales page. Um, I find it's far better to go step by step, right? Let's develop an avatar together. Okay, let's talk about the mechanism. What's the mechanism we want to promote here? What's the root cause that we want to say is behind all this? What are the big mistakes people are making? How should we frame the offer, right? How should we write write me a lead, right? Let's do the lead first, or
Mm,
let's do the headline first. Okay, what's the story that we want to have in here? Um, as I'm sure you know, if you ask AI to do too much at one time, it kind of gets tired, right? Kind of gets distracted, and it's not as good as if you do
mhm,
things kind of piece by piece and then put them together. Um, One way I like to use it is in terms of the evaluation, right? After the copy is generated, where is this good? Where is it bad? Where does it need to be stronger, right? What are some weaknesses in here? If this doesn't wind up working, what are the reasons why it might not work, right? And I might say, well, it doesn't have enough proof. I say, great. Like, what do you recommend for putting some proof in here? Um, and then even the final editing. It's a great proofreader. It's great at line edits. Like, hey, look through this. Tell me what are the places where people have to read twice to get what it means? What are the places that are awkward? What are the places that could be a little more colorful? And then I find that when you do that, AI will kind of give you like a paragraph and say, here, with this paragraph, it should be like this. And I'll say to it, no, I don't want to hunt for what changes you made. Give it to me in Markdown and cross out what you're saying I should take out and then put in bold what you're saying I should put in. And that's like a
mm,
really, really good way to have AI give you line edits like that.
mm,
Mistake number 5, over-reliance on prompts and templates. I really hate that idea of like, here's 100 prompts that, you can use. I think that's got a certain degree of usefulness because there's a lot you can learn from that, how people have evolved. But I think ultimately you want to do your own prompts. You want to learn how to write. You want to learn how to talk to it. You want to see what works for you in terms of prompting it, what gives you the output you want. You want to train it how to write in your voice. People a lot of times talk about how to get AI to write in your voice. One of the things I like about AI is I can get it to not write in my voice because that's kind of my habitual voice. Maybe I don't want it in my voice. Maybe I want it in John Carlton's voice. Or maybe I
mm,
want kind of a combination of my voice with a little more, because I tend to be a little more underplayed than John, right? Whenever I read John's
mm,
copy, he's like right in their face, telling them why they should buy. So if I inject a little bit of that into my copy, um, it makes my copy a little more powerful. If I try to sound too much like John, it sounds ridiculous. And it's not, what people are expecting from me. Um, but that's a great use of AI is to say, here's some John Carlton copy. What are the things that make this so powerful? Okay, now that you've isolated the things that make this so powerful, do I need to incorporate any of them into this sales page I just wrote? And I
mm,
can say, well, in truth, it could use a little more in your face here, right? Um, and then, yeah, and I think one of the things that this was hard for me to kind of get to because I don't like not doing things well and I don't like, when things don't work. But one of the things I found especially with AI is just do it, right? Just do all the things like learn how to set up a custom chat GPT, which is a great way to learn how to learn about AI and what it does and how to talk to it. Build an agent, create a workflow, like do all that stuff so you know what it's capable of. I think that's just essential these days. And there's, more and more exciting stuff that you can do with it. But, don't just rely on programs that do things for you or just rely on the regular interface of chat or Claude.
mm,
I think mistake number 6, not thinking of yourself as a creative director. I think now we're all creative directors, right? We're not writers. What we're doing is we not only have to do the writing and we have to ensure the quality of all the production that gets created, right? Because left to its own devices, AI does some not always great things. Um, and more, I think the people that will be successful copywriters um, they've kind of designed a system for producing the best copy at the fastest speed. So the question is, how much of what I'm going to do is AI? How much of what you're going to do is you, right? What's the balance? What's the best way to do it? Do I start by getting AI to do a rough draft? Or do I start by doing a rough draft myself and then getting AI to tell me how to improve it?
Mm.
Mistake number 7, not utilizing AI to help you better utilize AI. AI is amazing for um, helping you learn how to use it or doing better. Like it'll write prompts for you, right? It'll tell you what's wrong with your prompts. It'll tell you what you're missing. Um, you can say, okay, here's what I would like you to do to write this sales page or whatever it is, right? Or to do this research. You can then say to it, okay, here's what I've got to ask you to do. Before you do it, tell me what I'm missing. Tell me what else I should be asking you. Tell me what else I should be telling you about how to do it. And AI is going to say, well, you could tell me a little more about the market, right? You don't tell me very much about that. And you could tell me more about what specific format you want the research to be when it comes back to you. And here's some other things that would be helpful for me to understand. Um, One of the things I do when I tell it to do something and then it does it, and it doesn't do it as well as I would have liked, I'll say to it, okay, here's what I want you to do instead, and it'll do it. And I'll say, okay, how could we have gotten you to do that the first time? What would have been better in
Mm.
my instructions? What would have been better in my prompt to you so that we would have gotten here sooner? And it'll say, well, what you didn't do is you didn't phrase it in this way, so I got a little off track, or you weren't clear about this, or you need to include something that says, you know, like one of the things that I learned from AI that I need to do with AI is to put, if it's a long thing, to put a checklist at the end of it and say, okay,
Mm.
you're not done until you've done these, 5 things. So do a check to make sure you actually did these 5 things that I told you to do up here. And that just tremendously improves what it does. So use AI to help you use AI. And then mistake number 8, which is of course the biggest thing, is failure to add a human touch to the copy, right? Like the one thing that AI doesn't have and will never have is real human experience. And it's pretty good at mimicking how that sort of thing sounds, but it never sounds like someone really writing, right? Never sounds like someone that's actually had that experience. So how do you give it humanness? How do you give it soul? How do you, based on your experience, your stories, or the stories you get from the client? Um, Authenticity and transparency. One of the most powerful things in writing is just that the stuff you don't want to say, the stuff you're embarrassed about, the stuff the client is embarrassed about and doesn't want to say. AI is going to keep away from that stuff, right? It's always going to try to be safe. It's always going to try to be a little bit vanilla. So part of our job now as this creative director is to inject that sort of thing, right? Through our own experience, authenticity, intuition, right? Um, we have intuition that AI doesn't. We're going to want headlines or let headlines go by or think headlines are good that AI might think are terrible. Like at 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in this new Rolls Royce comes from the electric clock. AI is not going to come up with a headline like that,
Mhm.
right? Is I going to say, well, no, we don't want to say that the clock is noisy. And we don't want to say that, like just it's first of all, it's 17 words, it's too long. There's 100 reasons why AI might not come up with that or recognize that it's a good headline. Um, and so that's where our own intuition comes in because that headline makes us feel something. Just like they left when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play, we know that's a great headline because we read it and we feel something for that person. And then judgment and discrimination, that's always going to be our advantage, right? And it's going to be our advantage not even so much over AI, it's going to be our advantage over other people using AI if we're able to make
Mm.
better judgments and we're able to discriminate. When we get that list of 10 headlines, if we can tell what the best headline is, then we're much better off than someone who can't. So that's where it comes into, continuing to hone your copy skills. Mistake number 9, and this is again part of being that creative director, is failure to recognize the fingerprints of AI copy so you can get rid of them or have AI redo it. Um, Overuse of adverbs and adjectives, that feeling you get from AI sometimes where it's just kind of forced or over embellished.
Mm.
It's got a lot of descriptive things. The day dawned a bright sunny yellow. Lack of personal experience or real emotion. It was literally written by a machine, so the writing is at times going to feel inauthentic or difficult to relate to. Um, Repetitiveness. A lot of times AI will find a pattern or a point that it really likes, and it'll tend to repeat itself. It's like it's so happy with that point that might as well use it again. So one of the things to look for is just the kind of repetitiveness. Um, Generalizations. AI tries to make its output as broadly applicable as possible sometimes at the sacrifice of specificity and detail. So you want to drive toward more specificity. And sometimes that's as simple as saying, be more specific. Sometimes you have to go in and really add the specificity. Literalness is another sign of AI. Um, AI doesn't really do well with nuance, sarcasm, irony. Even when it tries to do it, sometimes it can seem overly literal, kind of like Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory, little bit of that Asperger's kind of thing. So you want to go in there and make it not be like that because people don't get a good feeling when they recognize or even subconsciously recognize something as AI. And then, of course, there's weird AI language, right? Odd word choices, awkward phrasing, or incorrect jargon. Um, and, I really find that a lot of people tend to be not very critical of AI copy. It's like, oh, this came out of AI. It must be right. And also, AI is really good at making it sound right. So you need to be really, I think, a little bit hypercritical in how you look at the copy. And then mistake number 10, not taking advantage of all that AI can do for a copywriter. And one of the ways of looking at that is kind of an AI taxonomy of all the things it can do, right? It can format, it can structure, it can transform, connect, anticipate, code, translate, simplify, it can transpose, iterate, convey, summarize. You can read all the rest of these, but just giving commands like this to AI, right? Expand on this, evaluate this, elaborate on this, debate this, defend this, counter argue this, classify it. How would you classify this copy I'm giving you, right? What are the different elements of it? What's the structure of it? So much that AI can do that I think it's almost tragic how people use AI to write emails only, and don't use it for so many things it's capable of. And
Mm.
6-step process for getting it right. Use AI as a tool, not a clutch. Develop strong prompts and frameworks, iterate, guide, and refine and guide AI. Keep pushing your unique voice and storytelling. Train your AI intuition and just stay ahead, right? AI is evolving so fast. If you don't keep up with how it's evolving, other people are going to keep up with it, learn how to use it, and they're going to be ahead of us. In short, AI is a powerful tool. Human creativity, strategic thinking, and judgment, though, are irreplaceable. And those who combine both are going to come out on top. And that's it. Just don't make those 10 mistakes. You'll be fine.
Uh-huh. Fantastic. That was good, man. There was a lot of stuff in there. A lot of very practical things without even going into doing a screen share of, say, ChatGPT, just the general philosophy almost of how to use ChatGPT.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
some
figure there's so
things.
much out.
Mhm.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I had some, I wasn't sure whether to jump in or just wait to the end, but some of the things you mentioned, one of them was the whole thing with iterations, which to me
Mhm.
has been that's where the magic is. I can prompt it. You whether you come up with your own prompt or buy a pack of 100 prompts, but it's the back and forth. The same way if we were brainstorming a product or some idea, it's the back and forth dialogue that where we get to some really interesting places, not just the put in one prompt and get your output and then you're done.
Right. And like I talked about before, I think that iteration helps you do better prompts in the first place because you can say, hey, how do we get to where we got to now in the first place? How can I rewrite my prompt
Mm,
from what you've learned about iterating with me like this? How
mm-hmm.
could that make my prompt better? And then your prompts keep
Mm,
getting better and you keep iterating. And before you know it, you're amazing.
mm-hmm. It's so interesting that AI can teach you to work better with AI. Like ask it, how can I do this better? Or like you said, how can we get to this point, but without 10 messages back and forth, just on the first message? You're really it's like the only limit is your imagination for
Yeah.
what you can ask, you know?
I always feel a little awkward talking to AI about AI. I always feel like, especially if it's like, how to correct AI copy or what AI does badly. I'm always afraid it's going to go, hey, what do you mean by that, Buster? Or, get offended.
Yeah.
But
I
it,
mean,
it
one day
never does.
maybe.
It always does a nice kind of sort of self-awareness of like, yeah, yeah, AI does that sometimes. And here's how to
Hmm.
prevent it.
Hmm. I mean, for something that's just a program or an algorithm or whatever you want to call it, a bit of code, it comes across surprisingly human. And even like I have conversations, not just about copy, but if I'm in the gym, it's sort of my personal trainer. It's dating and relationship coach. I use it for, I guess, what you might call therapy. If I've got a thing I'm thinking about or an issue or something,
Huh?
I'll go to Chat GPT and it is amazing. Number one, with the answers that it comes out with, but also it's very, I mean, I think they've programmed it to be quite safe and a bit of a people pleaser, I think one of my friends said. But just sometimes, like even if you just want to vent, you're like, oh, Mom, I'm so pissed off about this thing. There's things
Yeah,
happening in
right.
my life and it's frustrating me. And this is why I just want to tell someone about it. Can you offer any clarity? And it like validates, it'll hear you. And it's surprising, like, oh, that's all I really needed. I just wanted to be heard. And even though it's just a
Mhm.
robot, it's not really hearing anything. It still feels good.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing of just use AI for as much as possible. Let it
Hmm.
plan your trip to Europe, vent on it, ask it a question, ask it what you should have for
Hmm.
supper, ask it, and like you said, to be your therapist.
Hmm.
Rich Sheffrin talks very eloquently about that lately, about because it can get to know you,
Hmm.
and it's gotten to know you just from your working with it over the past year. It knows about you, knows whether you have a sense of humor or not. It knows what you like. It knows what a perfectionist I am because it takes 20 iterations before I'm satisfied.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And so where do you think copywriting is going to be? Maybe this is the note to end on, but where do you think this is all going in the next few years? Are you scared? Are you excited?
A little bit of both, but mostly excited that,
Hmm.
um, mostly excited that we can utilize this technology to write better and to think better, and now we become like conductors, now we become orchestrators, now we become creative directors. It's not just about grinding out copy. It's about choosing. It's about fine tuning. It's about making choices. It's about strategy at a higher level. It's about thinking at a higher level. It's kind of like, okay, you can think to here, and then AI can, help you get to here. And then because you're now
Hmm.
here, you can get to here and then to here, and then AI, you know what I mean? It's really helpful like that, I think, as a kind
Hmm.
of bouncing ideas off of.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Uh-huh.
two heads are better than
Fantastic.
one, even if one of them is AI, right?
Absolutely. There's something powerful just about having someone to riff with. Just because
Mhm.
then in that process of, oh, they, ChatGPT says something, and then I'm like, oh, that's a really good point. Then I think of a new thing, and then I feed it back to ChatGPT, and over time, it just gets like evolved in a way that if I was just journaling, it wouldn't happen in the same way. So yeah, there's something about that back and forth where the really cool stuff happens.
Well, copywriting is a very lonely profession sometimes, especially, if you like being around people, which I do to a limited extent. And AI is kind of a nice substitute for that, right? Even for getting feedback, which I think for a writer is really important.
Hmm.
Like hard to know if something's good, if something's right or not. Now you can find out instantly.
Yeah.
And it's not 100% right, but at least you get kind of that opinion, and then you can say, "Oh, you know what? I think they got a point there. I think AI
Hmm.
has a point. This really does
Hmm.
need something else, or it really is boring, or it really is, off target."
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Where, if people want to learn more about you, whether it's I know you're doing coaching or you've got some downloadable PDFs, books, guides, things like that, where is the
Yeah,
best place
I got
or places for them
all
to do
sorts
all
of
that?
all sorts of downloadable things. Speaking of writing.com is the place to go. And you can download, there's two free reports on there, one about copywriting and one about creativity. You can find out about, there's a coaching group that I have, which is really inexpensive and valuable, where you get all sorts of stuff. And, private coaching, there's a contact form, you can hit me up. And I think there's other stuff on there too. So head on over.
Great. Easy. Well, David, thank you so much for doing this. This was surprisingly really valuable, actually. Really, really cool stuff.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. It's a pleasure to do it.